All right, the Fed's Lisa Cook is fired. She doesn't seem to understand that, but Mr. Trump fired her. Joining us now is John Yoo, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General and UC Berkeley law professor. John, welcome back. I mean, what doesn't she understand? She's fired. And these lower courts are getting in the way, which is so typical of them in the Trump era. They are getting away of the president's desires. And you say he stands on strong legal ground. She should be fired.
Hey, Larry, it's great to see you again. The Constitution creates one executive branch, and one person of the Constitution is the head of it, the president. He alone is in charge of taking care that the laws are faithfully executed, which is what the Fed does. The Fed carries out federal law. The Supreme Court has said, and it's said all the way back to the time of the founders, that everyone who works in the executive branch is really an assistant to the president. And so the president has to be able to fire anyone in the executive branch to make sure that they all enforce the law, all follow policy in the same way. Why is Lisa Cook any different than the head of any agency, the Secretary of Defense, or the head of the FTC? The Supreme Court has said the president can fire any of them at will. Now, I would say President Trump is actually taking an intermediate moderate position. He's saying, well, Congress says I can only fire them for cause. He says Lisa Cook can be removed for cause. It's not just his whim to fire her. She has lied, allegedly, on mortgage applications. And since she's someone who regulates the banking industry, it hurts the credibility of federal regulation to have someone like that in charge of the banking industry.
The latest on the Court of Appeals was two Democratic judges voted for Cook to remain on the Fed, but the Republican judge sided with Trump. And I just see partisan politics going on here left and right. And you know, the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, going all the way back, it never defines cause. And that's why your point, if the president can appoint, if he can nominate and appoint for confirmation, he should have the authority to let him go if there's any cause at all. He should be able to fire them. There's no fourth branch of government here, John Yoo. That's the thing. So she's sitting there, she's going to vote. I mean, she is voting at this FOMC meeting, the Fed meeting that is occurring today and tomorrow. And I think that's a travesty of justice.
Not only is it a travesty, but I think these lower courts are trying to defy the Supreme Court, and they're trying to place obstacles in front of a president who won a majority of the vote of the American people to pursue this agenda. They are making up theories about why she's allowed to stay in her job that I expect the Supreme Court to overrule. For example, this lower court actually says Lisa Cook has a property right in her job. And so before she can be fired, she has to have a hearing. Can you imagine, Larry, when you were at the White House, if President Trump wanted to fire you, you could say, I get a hearing first because I have a property right in being the head of the Council of Economic Advisors or something. That is a theory that no court has ever tried before. So I think the Supreme Court's going to brush this aside and then allow President Trump to exercise the executive powers president to fire subordinates.
You know, I just think presidents come into power, and I would say the same thing. I might not like it, but when Democrats come into power, their executive has a right to try to instill their own policies. And the same thing that Republicans should have. You know, it's good for the goose is good for the gander. I mean, they cannot, these lower judges, lower court judges, they should not be standing in the way. I mean, I think a lot of people agree with that. We'll see how it plays out. The Supremes will take this up. Anyway, John Yoo, UC Berkeley, thank you very much. We appreciate your wisdom, as always. Coming up here on Kudlow, we're going to talk to Senator Eric Schmitt when Kudlow returns. Can we